עצביהן כסף וזו, מעשה ידי אדם. יצביהן כסף וזו, מעשה ידי אדם. הן להם ולא ידברו, עיניים להם ולא יראו, אוזניים להם ולא ישמעו, אף להם ולא יריחון. עצביהן כסף וזו, מעשה ידי אדם. עצביהן כסף וזו, מעשה ידי אדם. אוזניים להם ולא ישמעו, אף להם ולא יריחון. ידיהם ולא ימישון, רגליהם ולא יהלכו. עצביהן כסף וזו, מעשה ידי אדם. עצביהן כסף וזו, מעשה ידי אדם.
It's good to be back. Spent too much time just listening to the chazanim, the great cantors, hoping one day we'll get back to the synagogue, back to the shul. You know, sometimes I listen to Yasla, sometimes to Orzek, all good. But it's good to be back, and it's good to connect with you again. Welcome to the Mosaic event, and it is now time to open our event with the singing of the national anthem. We have some special vocalists who are going to lead us in this. The youth of our congregation have ensembled in their own homes to bring us the national anthem. I'm going to ask everyone to rise, but just make sure you're properly dressed for this event when you stand up. Now please rise for the national anthem.
Our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our stars and land, with one
guys, you were amazing. That was just incredible. I love those voices. With a little bit of practice, you could be future entertainment on a synagogue Zoom fundraiser. Well, let's be honest. You guys could probably even do better than that. But you inspired me to find my inner voice. And so now, for tonight's feature entertainment. יקרא לבנים בד, ויצעקם כמו בבד, נעים שמכם ולא יושבע, שבו ורוחו ביום שבת, תרגוש נביא בדיון עמי, ויום ישעשה עמי, נטע זורק בתוך כרמי, שאי שבת בני עמי. Okay, enough torture. Now time for tonight's real feature, the Maccabeats from New York City.
Good evening. My name is Julian Horowitz. I'm the music director for the Maccabeats. Firstly, I wanted to thank the Schara Tzedeck community for inviting us to participate in this beautiful evening. That you've managed to stay connected during these distanced times is a testament to the tenacity of your community and the staying power of Vancouver's oldest shul. We'd like to salute your community and her leaders for the continued inspiration they've provided and encourage everyone to remember and celebrate the critical place that Schara Tzedeck plays in your lives. Please enjoy our rendition of Lecha Dodi, one of the most cherished synagogue prayers. I think you'll all recognize the melody composed by fellow Canadian Jew, the late Leonard Cohen. Mazel Tov.
Lecha Dodi Likras Kala Pnei Shabbos Nikah Bilu Shamor V'Zachor B'Diburechon Yishmiyanu Kelam Yuchon Hashem Echon Ushimo Echon L'Shem U'L'Siferes V'L'Sila Lecha Dodi Likras Kala B'nei Shabbos Nikah Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Lecha Dodi Likras Kala B'nei Shabbos Nikah Boli B'Shalom Ateres Bala Gam B'Simcha V'Tala Toch Emunei Av Sigula Bo'I Chala Bo'I Chala Likras Kala B'nei Shabbos
I really need to thank two people, Basil and Selma Kolner, because the two of you have raised an exceptional son. I mean that with no exaggeration. Howie's level of caring and investment, the amount of time, passion, and energy that he puts in, and I would say the defining characteristic of that is Howie's deep concern that we are reaching every member of the shul, that we have something for every age group, for every profile, for every way in which someone might get involved. Howie wants us to be relevant, to be reaching out, and to be helping. Howie, thank you so much, and it is a great honor to introduce you to give the President's address on this Mosaic Zoom evening.
Thank you, Rabbi. Rabbis, members, guests, and my mother. My great pleasure to welcome you to Mosaic 2020. First, I want to convey my hope and prayer that each and every one of you, as well as your families, are healthy and well. This evening, we are setting precedent by doing something we've never done before, hosting our first ever virtual gala. The event may be a first, but in actuality, we began setting precedent in March when COVID-19 precipitated a host of changes for us. They began with us shutting our premises for the first time in Schara Tzedeck's 113-year history, and then launched us on a journey to find a new and innovative ways to come together while we were required to stay apart. What we discovered is that physical distancing need not mean spiritual, emotional, or social distancing. As soon as we closed our physical doors, we opened new virtual ones to meet the needs of our members. I firmly believe our resilience during these extraordinary times has made us stronger and more united than ever. Shutting down Schara Tzedeck has not meant closing Schara Tzedeck. If anything, our rabbis, staff, together with the support of volunteers and donors, are busier than ever responding to the needs of our shul and the wider community. I would like to offer just a few highlights of what has been happening at Schara Tzedeck during the pandemic. One, we have run more than 150 Zoom sessions for all ages. Two, our shul staff and volunteers have made more than 1,000 calls to check in with our senior members. Three, we have delivered over 500 Shabbat Kids Club kits to our young members. Each box contains a short one-page description of the week's Parsha, as well as a fun activity. Four, over the last 3 months, we have delivered nearly 1,700 meals to Schara Tzedeck seniors, as well as the vulnerable members of our community. These programs are a testament to the power of connection and the importance of outreach, particularly during these extraordinary times. As difficult as the adjustment has been for our immediate and wider community, I believe that some of what has happened over the last few months has been magical in its own way. We have been physically distanced, but in many ways more connected than ever. Schara Tzedeck has once again stepped up as the spiritual center of the Orthodox community. Throughout our history, through wars, depression, and hard times, we have always been there for our members. Now is no exception. We should all share tremendous pride in what our shul has been able to accomplish during these unprecedented times. We have stayed true to our mission and values by taking extraordinary care of each other and showing the love and compassion that makes our synagogue so special. I would like to close by thanking our incredible staff. They have worked tirelessly and creatively to maintain operations through very tough conditions, and they have thrived beyond measure. Within 2 days of closing our physical doors, they made the seamless transition to a virtual Schara Tzedeck and had our Zoom classes up and running. It is a credit to the resilience of our staff and their tremendous passion for the shul and its members that the shul has managed so well. Finally, my personal and profound thanks to all the donors, members, and volunteers who make this evening and make every day possible at Schara Tzedeck. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you, Howie, for those meaningful words. What you're about to see is a time compression of what the synagogue has been doing these past 10 weeks. It's an amazing assembly of the hard work that we've done reaching out to other homes. You're going to see the act of cooking, preparing, packing, delivering, picking up. And you're also going to see how Chaya Rosenfeld's youth program has touched lots of people. You'll see pictures of children's art projects that have become anticipated relief from the isolation that we've all had to endure for the past 10 weeks.
Dear Howard, I wanted to let you and everyone at Schara Tzedeck who's working so hard know how much of a vital and meaningful lifeline you've been and still are for me. During this pandemic, as a woman on my own, at times I felt very lonely, isolated, and sometimes fearful. Natural emotions, I'm sure, but deep and very real. The connection to Schara Tzedeck through Zoom classes and COVID-19 updates, as well as talks by Sorel and Gabby, and phone calls to check on me, and offers to go shopping for me, and Shabbat meals that have been sent, have been uplifting and as good as a virtual hug. In fact, I'm feeling much more connected to Schara Tzedeck and to the people of Schara Tzedeck than at any other time. I can't thank you and everyone enough. I've lived on my own and quite independently for most of my adult life, but the connections that I've had to Schara Tzedeck have never been deeper than they are right now, and I thank you for this very, very much. It's been a vital lifeline. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom, and all the very best. Audrey.
Thank you for the weekly Shabbat bags. I love my glasses.
My two children, who are 2 and 4.5 years old, love receiving the Shabbat bags, and they get so excited every time that they come. And my older one now asks every Friday, when is the shul bringing our Shabbat bag? It makes us so happy for them to grow this special connection with their shul, and I am overwhelmed by the thought and effort that is put into each and every one of these bags. We feel so blessed to be part of a community that cares so deeply for its members and works hard to keep us connected and safe. Thank you so much.
I've always told people that one of the hard things about Schara Tzedeck is how you measure up to the job. My predecessors have done amazing things. One of which, Rabbi Marvin Hier, has started an international organization, Simon Wiesenthal Center, is opening a facility in a prime location in Israel, but he's also won 2 Oscars. Not 1, 2. How do you compete with that? So it's always a pleasure to speak to Rabbi Higher. Rabbi Higher has a unique perspective on the world, a beautiful and animated character, and you always feel like you're in a real Heimische space, a real special, very Jewish. He makes LA feel like Brooklyn. He's wonderful. And so I'm glad to share with you my conversation with Rabbi Marvin Hier. Hi, Rabbi Higher.
Hello.
How are you?
You're in Vancouver, and you're dressed to the hilt. We're sitting here in the middle of the not only pandemic, in the middle of the tsuris. We can't go outside because of police. We're under a curfew.
Wow. So this is you're not in Canada anymore. So okay, I want to go to some of the questions we prepared.
Now, Rabbi Rosenblatt, I'm going to do whatever you want, so don't rush. Go.
Okay. Go. All right. So, I guess the first question is, if you were to write a letter to your young self, right? You took the pulpit at Schara Tzedeck, I don't know, 24, 25, something like that. if you could write a letter to your young self, what would it say? What advice would you give to your young self starting out in Shara Tzedeck?
You mean in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say the following. I learned a lot. Remember, I was a yeshiva bacha like you, and I came out there, and they had a parking lot, and the parking lot was more or less in use on Shabbos. People parked their cars in the back, and I'm looking at this, and tell you the truth, we asked ourselves many times, did we do the right thing? Maybe we should head right back to the safety of Manhattan. And my wife used to live in Borough Park, so whether we would live in Borough Park, my brother-in-law wanted me to go into the jewelry business with him if it didn't work out. I said to myself, but then I saw something that was really unbelievable, and that is that the young people there was no Shomer Shabbos at that time, coming Shabbos in Shul, I'd say 5 Shomer Shabbos. And the rest of the minyan drove up in their cars, parked in the back, etc. I said, look, have 2 choices. If you give up, so why did I go into the Rabbanis? And the other thing is, it's got to be a better way, and maybe the future, they did the best they could. They came to Canada in difficult times in the 30s and 40s. Jobs weren't frequent there. They did the best they could. And maybe I'm wrong that I'm too much of a yeshiva bacha. I think I'm living on the Lower East Side, and everybody around me was frum. And this is not the case. And I said, so you know what? You have to concentrate on the next generation. And maybe these balabatim will give me the opportunity. They can't come to shul, but they can support, if we have a youth program, like I knew about NCSY. So I got in touch with YU Torah leadership seminars immediately, as soon as I could at that time, saying, look, can you help us here? And they said, Vancouver. They never heard of the place. So what I did was try to line up a few balabatim that were young, not frum. And because the frum were, I don't know if you know the names, you'll know the name, Tischlers, the Weinbergers. There was the Tischlers, the Weinbergers, and maybe the Schusters, and Ben-Zi and Leibowitz. There were maybe 5, 6 families that were really Shomer Shabbos. And others walked from a little bit further. So anyway, I said to myself, this is the way. Can we find 1 or 2 people that will say, we're concentrating on the next generation? And my pitch to them would be very simple, like a Murray Goldman and a Gordon Diamond. And I said to them like this at that time. I said to Jack Diamond, his father, I said, look, you built a beautiful shul. The only way this shul is going to remain in the future is if there'll be people that want to come into the building. And if we don't have the programs or the funding to do that, there's going to be nobody here. And one day you're going to have to, with this lovely parking lot and the big back, you're going to have to close it all up or sell the building. And they got together a bunch of young people. They said, Rabbi, they were very frank. We're not coming to shul. If the deal is that you want us to do this and we're going to show up every Shabbos, we're not coming. To help you financially, that we will be willing to do. And so then Malki and I made a decision, let's stick it out here. Give it a few years. And that's what happened. Okay. And, that's how, so it was the non-frum people that made the future generation possible. That was the great miracle. I would never have believed it. On the East Side, they never taught us that. I thought if a person's not frum,
yeah,
give up on them. They can't do anything. Gone.
Right. So interesting. Since we're in that, we're still in the week of Shiva for Rabbi Lam, Zichrono Livracha. When I first took this position, Rabbi Lam happened to be that Shabbos in Englewood, New Jersey. And he told me a story about the 2 of you on the Capilano Bridge.
That's correct.
You want to tell us that story?
Yeah, it was an unbelievable story. I hope he told it correct. Here's what happened. I myself, I added that bridge because I was afraid. No, Rabbi Lam told the story. Right. How did he tell the story? You tell me how, then I'll tell you what I'll tell.
No, I want to hear yours first.
Okay. No, you tell. Okay. So here's what happened. First of all, we go to the Capilano Bridge, and and he's afraid. He never swore a thing like this. And you shake the entire bridge. Doesn't matter whether there are only 10 people on the whole bridge or there are 1,000 people on the whole bridge. Everybody gets the opportunity to shake the whole bridge when you first start. So he didn't want to go. He was like holding on. But then he told me a very good word. And you want to know what he told me? He told me this word. He said like this, that, at least we can learn a Musa Haskell. He held on like this on both hands. And he said that, once we went onto the bridge, the whole thing shook. And so he said to me, Rabbi Lamb says to me, see, what do you learn from this? He says, we learn from this that if you shake the cables too much, you get everybody's attention. He says, we're rabbis. And he says, when you're a rabbi, you have to learn the following. He says, by all means, teach them Torah. Do everything you can to change their lives. But don't shake the cables too much so that you scare them off. In other words, his point was, don't start that they should, from now on, basically there's an error, and you be careful how to work, etc. He says, you're in Vancouver. Play the role at Vancouver is supposed. That's what he told me.
Wow.
He was afraid. He was afraid. I was also afraid.
But, so first of all,
I've there before.
So that shows you Rabbi Lamb's brilliance, because he can take something like that. I would have thought something, simple. The entire world is a narrow bridge. Gesher Tzar Ma'od. I would have thought maybe every little move you make makes a ripple across the world. But he's a consummate rabbi giving you advice about how to talk to the people. He didn't tell me any of the drasha stuff, any of the interpretation. He just told me that the two of you had to crawl back because he got vertigo.
He did. I said to him, Rabbi Lamb, he says, how long to the other side? I said, to the other side, it'll take us about a half an hour, the way at the rate that you're walking. He says, I'm not walking. He says, take me off or you'll have to carry me off.
So I'll tell you how the generations have changed, because I went to the Lynn Valley suspension bridge with Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and he just could not get over how beautiful the whole thing was. But I had warned him. I had given him the Rabbi Lamb story, so he knew not to complain.
Oh, very good.
So I want to, I'm really interested in another question, which is that you are maybe one of the great Jewish entrepreneurs of the last 50 years. When you think of rabbis who have started organizations that didn't begin before, rabbis who have accessed new media, new frontiers, you're it. So my question is, maybe there's some young Jewish entrepreneurs out there. What advice would you give them about starting an organization, new media, movie stars, communication, celebrity, any of those things?
I would tell them that it's worth to try new things, not to be afraid of it. Of course, look, we didn't have a penny. When we started the yeshiva, we only had enough money to buy the building. So we certainly couldn't think of Hollywood stars or movies. But when the opportunity came, purely by accident, I don't know if you know what happened. What happened was I had an telephone extension cord of about 150 feet. We bought the building here in Los Angeles, and the old tenant took everything with them, including the lights. So we had to put in like a temporary light. There was nothing in the building. And something told me, if you get a call, I have no secretary. So what do? You ask the telephone company, what's the longest extension cord? They told me 150 feet. I took an extension cord of 150 feet and carried the telephone with me. And we had put some notification. In addition to the yeshiva, we're thinking of starting the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And we're thinking of starting, at that time we didn't have Simon Wiesenthal, so we're thinking of starting a Holocaust Center. So what happened was, I got I'm working with the extension cord, and I actually get a call. So on the call, there's a rough guy, and he says, "Who am I talking to?" So I said, "This is Marvin Hier." He says, "Are you the person that said had something in the newspaper? You're going to start the Simon Wiesenthal Center? I know you're building a yeshiva too, but you're starting the Simon Wiesenthal Center." And I said, "Yes." I said, "Who is this?" And he says, "My name is Mickey Rudin. I'm a lawyer." And so I said, "What can I do for you, Mr. Rudin?" And he said, "Are you going to be in your office for 2 hours?" I went to tell him I didn't have an office in that extension cord. I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because you may be getting a call from Frank Sinatra." So I say to myself that Mickey Rudin is a Jewish name. So I said, "Oh, Mr. Rudin, I can't thank you enough thank you so much for that Frank Sinatra is going to give me a call." I said, I can't believe it. So he says, "What are you thanking me for?" I said, "Well, you're the one who's giving me the information." He said, "I told him, Frank, you're out of your mind. You're calling an organization that you don't even know will get off the ground, and you want to get involved with them. What happens if nothing happens? There'll be a total embarrassment." So I said to Mr. Rudin, "So why is he calling?" He says, "Now you finally get to the point." He says, "You know why he's calling you, Rabbi? Because he doesn't listen to his damn attorney. That's why." And Frank Sinatra called me. Mamish had nothing, garnished in the building. We just had enough. The Bellsbergs gave us money, and we had enough. And Arnal gave us a little bit of money. We had enough maybe to pay our bills for another 2 months. And he said, "I'd like to invite you over to my home." He said, "I read in the Jewish paper that you want to start Simon Wiesenthal said, I'd like to help you. Could you come?" He says, "I know you can't come on Saturday. Can you come on Sunday?" Malky and I went to his house, and he not only said that he's going to get involved, he invited his neighbor, Danny Schwartz, to bring the Jewish directory with him, made a call in our presence to a man by the name of Don Sofa, who's still a member of our board till this very day. Tells Mr. Sofa on the phone in my presence, I never heard of Mr. Sofa, didn't know who he was. And Sinatra tells him, he says, "Don," he said, "look, I'm calling you because you have an obligation." He says, "I'm a non-Jew and I'm willing to help, but you have an obligation. I'm going to send my rabbi here in another 2 weeks. He's going to come down to you. I would sure appreciate it if you gave him a very nice donation. I'd appreciate it because I intend to help him." 2 weeks later, we come down to Don Sofa, and rather than like looking angry or mad at me, this Don Sofa says to me, he goes, "Rabbi, I have a very generous gift for you." He gave me a check of $50,000. This is 1977. He made a check of $50,000. And he says, "Rabbi, what I gave you now is peanuts to what I made of it on the golf course. I've been on that golf course the last 2 weeks telling everybody, every businessman I can play golf with. Guess who called me to schnorr some dollars for a Jewish institution? Frank Sinatra." And Sinatra got him. He wound up giving millions to us, not $50,000. Over the years, he gave millions. He's still on the board, and Sinatra called other people too. So wow. It was all by share. And it wasn't my time. Listen, people say, "Rabbi Higher, how'd you get involved?" There was something that went in our direction, and I just took the opportunity and said, "This is the opportunity. Either take it now or you'll never get it again." And right. We started Mariah Films.
Well, but maybe when you're doing the right thing, you can get everybody to walk with you.
No, well, look. No, I'm just saying that it's, and then I found out that, people say, "Oh, movie stars, etc." Some of them are tough. Some of them you don't want to meet a second time. Others are very nice. And if they're Jewish, they do have a guilty conscience. And therefore many of them helped. I look over the years that every narrator that has done our film never charged us 10 cents. How do we start with them when we call them? We tell them the first two people to narrate our films was Elizabeth Taylor and Orson Welles. And they didn't charge us. They did it as a public service. So everybody else fell into line. Right. And I discovered that rather than, I was telling Rabbi Berman, the president of Yeshiva University, a year ago, I told him this, that I thought that YU in its time, when under Dr. Belkin, I believe it was under Dr. Belkin, started Einstein. That was the right thing to do at that time in terms of medical school. Now I said to Rabbi Berman, the right thing to do for Yeshiva should be in the entertainment business. What do I mean business? Entertainment business. Yeshiva should open a film school and try to attract the top talent to volunteer to come in and give a lecture on how to do things, etc. To put people in the computer. We live in the computer world. We live in the media world today. It's not the world of medicine and dentistry the way it was in the 50s. Now it's a different world. So, I look, it fell into my lap. I never would have thought, if you think that Marvin Hier would have thought of the idea with the yeshiva to basically go to the entertainment community and be telling you a big lie. Never in a million years thought that way. Just that we put an ad in the Jewish paper, and this guy, Sinatra, saw it, and I said, well, you got to run. If that's the case, I'd be a gomo not to take the opportunity.
Right. So, another thing I want to just talk to you about is when you started Schara Tzedeck, it was a field, probably at least 50%, if not more, immigrants.
Correct.
And now that picture's really changed. And I wonder if you might reflect on what you think the difference is between communicating to a community of immigrants, maybe that were raised in Europe or who were themselves survivors, versus what we have today, the challenge that faces us with people who have grown up in the lap of luxury.
Well, I think it's a greater challenge in a way today, because I'll tell you why, in my opinion. The older generation had a sense of guilt. When I look at the names of every family that was involved, I'm talking about the older generation when I came to Vancouver. Those were people who thought of the Holocaust. They thought of their grandparents and what happened to them, their brothers and sisters. And they had a deep sense, in other words, they themselves didn't see themselves as Orthodox Jews to come every Shabbos, every morning to a minyan or Mincha Ma'ariv. But they had that guilt that they remember a generation that was so, right. And they belonged, they had that sense that basically they owed an obligation to their parents and grandparents. Today, it's a younger generation. And the question is, do they feel the same way? I think the work is in a way, in other words, remember, in my time when I was in Schara Tzedeck, I didn't approach the older generation on the basis that they need to come to the minyan on Mincha Ma'ariv or Shachris in the morning, because I knew I wouldn't get them. So I approached them on a level, at least help me, so we can build a younger generation that you won't have to close the shul. And that worked. Today, it's a different story. Today, there are a lot of, there isn't that guilt, in other words, of the previous generation. The Hitler generation is gone, in other words. So you don't have that guilt.
Yeah, I would, I would describe it almost maybe a little bit differently, in that in the post-Holocaust era, survival was, rebuilding the Jewish people was what everybody was thinking about.
Right.
State of Israel, Satmar, everyone was thinking about that. People today don't live with the same active worry that the Jewish community will not regrow. I think everybody assumes that they're going to be able to make their children carbon copies of the balance that they keep. And that's just generally not the case. There is usually a reduction that goes generation to generation. I'll throw it back to you a little bit. You've seen now 3 generations of education. The young couples that you married are becoming bubbies and zadis now.
Right.
So you've seen 3 generations of Jewish education. If you're giving a piece of advice to the members of Vancouver, what do you think the secret sauce is for educating your children, your grandchildren?
I think that we have an obligation to the great miracles of Jewish history that have occurred only to our generation. Previous generations dreamed that there would be a Medinat Yisrael. Here we are. We have the ability, once the pandemic is over, take a plane, go to Yerushalayim, to Tel Aviv, to go to the beaches, to see Jewish life rejuvenated. And the previous generation handed that to us. What will we hand to the future generations? We are now stepping into the younger generation. I'm not me. The younger generation is now stepping into those shoes. And what are they going to do? Just, live on the endowments and fruits of previous generations, or are they going to plant something for their generation? In other words, we owe a debt to a generation that came out of the Holocaust. Look what they gave us. Now we're alive. Jewish life is thriving today in comparison to what it was in the 30s and the 40s, and even in the early 50s. And look what it is today. What is our obligation to the future generations? Because this generation has been a generous recipient. And if you're a generous recipient, you got to say thank you, and you got to do something for future generations. It's sort of a double obligation on their part, because the previous generation could at least say, "What do you mean? Nothing has happened to us? We see that we're nobodies." And for these nobodies, all of a sudden, Israel today is probably the 5th strongest army, or 5th or 6th strongest army in the world. That's a nes nigla. Nobody would have ever expected that.
Right, Rabbi. What's funny? They used to talk about how good our army was. Now they talk about how good our economy is. Soon they talk about how good our coronavirus policy was.
Yeah, the coronavirus policy, that's a different question.
Well,
but I would say something.
Israel's done a really good job. They're relative to where they started. They managed to keep the virus under great control, especially compared to Canada and the United States.
What's that?
Especially compared to Canada and the United States, Israel did a remarkable job of managing the virus situation.
No, absolutely. Look, it's a different times, but there's great opportunities today. When I went to yeshiva in my days, we didn't have the opportunities that the generation has today. Look how many places they can go to yeshiva if they're from, or universities. They can go anywhere in the world. We couldn't go anywhere. When my parents were shocked. They couldn't believe it. The funniest story, I wrote about it in a book that I wrote, was the Rav of the shul of the Litovitsk shul. He heard that I took a position, an assistant rabbi, and he called my father over and told him in Yiddish like this: Yankel, he said, "Vi losti," I'll translate, "Vi losti dein Sinn, wer aruf in a communist Medina." I said, my father told me this. I said, "Dad, what are you talking about?" He says that he says you became a rabbi in Vancouver. This is a communist Medina. I mean, the Rav never heard of Vancouver. He thought it was Vancouver. So that was a different generation.
Right. All right, I'm gonna ask you one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last question is, what surprised you most about the trajectory that Schara Tzedeck took since you left?
I'm pleasantly surprised. I think it's fantastic. I never dreamed when I left that there would ever be a yeshiva, that there would ever, in the initial stages, there'd be a kollel, that there'd be a high school, that there'll be so many frum people that are basically, at the shul. In my time, I couldn't imagine this. yes, we had an NCSY convention. We had an NCSY Shabbaton in the morning, but we didn't have that permanence. When I came, whether it's Chabad, whether it's Shara Tzedeck, your shul, and to see that you for many years, which kollel was there? It used to be
Fagelstock's kollel.
Yes.
The Oel Yaakov.
Yeah, kollel, and then you had, but you have a kosher restaurant. In our time, there was no such thing as a kosher restaurant. I mean, we had kosher food, but you couldn't go and have a good dinner by somebody.
Right.
So I'm amazed at the terrific. You've done a fantastic job in Vancouver, and I hope the Balabatim appreciate what a talented Rav they have. If not, I'll tell them.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Rabbi Higher, really.
How are you going to doing this?
What's that?
How are we doing it? When are you going to? No, what date? What are we doing?
Okay, so I captured this by recording.
Okay, so you do it now. Okay.
No, so my son is going to edit it, and we're gonna. It was great. It was brilliant. We're going to put it together, and okay. I'll send you the link if you want to watch.
To anyone that remembers me, that knows me from Vancouver, I wish you all well. And as I say, this Rabbi Rosenblatt had nothing to do with what I'm saying now. Know who you have as a Rav of the shul. Take good care of this young man.
Not so young anymore.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you, Rabbi.
You look like a kid.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Hatzlacha with everything that's going on in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Sei gesund.
You
Goodbye.
too.
Bye.
I want to close Mosaic with a story and a Dvar Torah. I was looking for something to give us some inspiration in a time of isolation. So I looked back to history, and I remembered that the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, when he was still the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv Yafo, was on a fundraising trip to raise money for his yeshiva. And Rabbi Kook essentially gets caught in London at the outbreak of World War I and can't make it back to Israel. And so he's isolated from the nascent yeshuv in Eretz Yisrael. The chief rabbi literally is outside of his shul. And he starts to write what is a very important work, his Orot. He begins with a work which is called Orot Meha'ofel, the light from with it amidst the darkness. And Rabbi Kook starts this work by meditating on the fact that Israel is not just a physical concept. It's not just a basket to hold the nation, but rather it is a spiritual concept. It is a connection that transcends the physical. He then goes on to say that the diaspora happened for a reason. The distancing from the physical land of Israel happened to rebuild certain kinds of characteristics. Well, here we are. We're at a time when our synagogue has been closed to regular worship for over 10 weeks. We're now just starting to reopen. But I think that this time has taught us something very interesting. And here I borrow a reaction from one of my colleagues who, when our rabbis got together to talk about reopening, he said, we're not reopening. We were never closed. Yes, we shut our doors to prayer. We were never really closed. Our communities stayed connected. This idea of the synagogue as more than a physical space to come together has never been more true, never been more transcendent. Never more have we realized how our community exists beyond the four walls of the building, how we can figure out ways to connect, and be meaningful, and be relevant in all sorts of other contexts and ways. And this has been really a fantastic partnership. It's been a fantastic partnership between a creative staff, Chaya Rosenfeld, Rachel Lewinsky, Camille Wenner, Rabbi Federgren, Joseph Marciano, Cantor Orzek, all working hard to figure out, each in their own way, how we can reach out to you, support you, be meaningful to you, provide Torah study, provide opportunities to pray, to provide opportunities for us to virtually gather, to send meals, to be emotionally in touch, all of those things. I also want to thank our executive and our board, who have been supportive and forward-thinking and positive in all of this. I want to thank Rabbi Wilchfort and Rabbi Berger and Rabbi Pacht for their contributions to our regular programming. I want to thank Sarah Berger for making sure that our mikveh remained running. Also, Ayala Wilchfort, who continued to give a women's class over Zoom. Also want to thank those who actually are improving our building while we were out. To Aaron Rosenthal, to Jen and Michelle. You have started to make our building a better, cleaner, and safer place. And last but not least, I want to thank the amazing community partnership that we have had. The drivers and the volunteers, the callers. There are so many people who have been the building blocks of what is our synagogue displaced, our proof that the synagogue can be more than what it originally was. Just like Rav Kook, who said, the exile helped us to purify certain things. I think this time has helped us to understand how important our community is, how generous it's been, how the gifts to the discretionary fund, to Shabbos in a Box, have allowed Schara Tzedeck to be a real pillar of support in this community. It is you who have been that pillar of support, and we thank you for your participation. Just want to close, give the staff a chance to say their goodbye. We want to thank all of you for staying connected to us during this difficult time. hold on.
Come
I'm not
in.
sure. Yes.
Sorry.
Wait, what, Howie? You had a question? You can't
I
hear
hear
me.
you.
You're on
You
mute, Howie.
muted yourself. You muted yourself. Unmute yourself.
How about that?
There we
Great.
go.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
By the way, I
right.
think this view of me is making my nose look big. Is that,
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, here goes. So, I think the Maccabeats are a little expensive. Are you sure we can afford them?
Who needs the Maccabeats?
Howard, you got a better suggestion? I've heard you sing. You could kill someone.
Let's sing.
Local talent, you're saying?
I've been jealous of the Rosenblatt brothers. Let's just use our own talents.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay. Are you ready? Here we go. I'm cueing the music. And my vodka's in the air sometimes.
We're gonna
celebrate for all 8 nights. Singing ayo, sing the dreidel.
You're not paying me enough for this guy.
I don't know.
I think.
All right, one last time trying to sing. I think we didn't have the words.
And it was
Right?
too long. We can't sing that long.
No.
We
Okay.
gotta sing for like 3 syllables.
Okay.
I think I flipped my luck. It's in the air tonight singing AO is.
Schwangeneck.
Okay.
And Johnny, get some of this going or a little bit of. You can't compete with Rabbi's background there. It's
I know.
going to steal the whole show.
Yeah.
He's too young to have psychedelic too. He was born in the 80s.
Okay. All right, we're going to just do the music part again. Ready? Okay, here goes. Flip my latkes in the air sometimes, singing ayo, in the dreidel.
I think that was beautiful. You nailed it.
All right, I will